team-based games and modifications, promoting implicit learning and non-conscious behavior mimicry. In this video, we'll look at how team games means where in a practice session, players are divided into teams of 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the size of the group. The belief is that players learn from opponents as they play, as they try to address the same problem in different ways. Team-based games have been promoted by Tennis Canada because of the belief that team affiliation brings players into a closer competition and encourages them to actually engage more in the process of learning for the team as well as for themselves. The idea in this is that a scoring system causes players on one team to rotate against opponents from the other team. And the key idea is you record the score for the team and that you return to this game after a practice session to repeat that to see the improvement or add the scores together from the first and second version of the game. The final score for each team is then held for each practice session, and adaptation rules can be added in order to make the competition closer. It is believed that this form of team atmosphere shifts tennis from an individual sport to one where there's social interaction that encourages a feeling of being supported and develops fun in the challenge of learning to play. In addition, Hopper and Rhodes have sort of formalized that there's a belief in social psychology called behavior mimicry that through this sort of affiliation extends that idea, and non-conscious behavior mimicry often means that people learn from others implicitly without realizing it. So theories that inform this, one are implicit learning, that actually refers to the idea of becoming attuned to something in a game where you seek a solution without often realizing what you're learning. And such implicit learning often leads to more stable skills appearing in gameplay later on. And then non-conscious behavior mimicry, where actually playing with a diverse set of opponents causes you to pick up on their successful movement behaviors, in particular where a lesser player who has more advantage based on affordances in the game to play against a better player, therefore picking up on what that player does to be successful. In this video, we will focus on the games shown here created by Tennis Canada. In this video, we will focus on the games shown here and explain how their team-based focus can be enhanced based on different forms of modifications. These games can be accessed from Tennis Canada's Learning to Play manual listed in the comments section to this video. Structure of rules to start a modified game. Games should be developed with the following structure to make it easy to explain and to allow the coach to change aspects of the structure in order to promote desired skill and tactical learning. So for design purposes, representational design based on the adult game, where constraints can be designed in order to draw out tactical concepts or skill fundamentals. The aim of the game, what the players must do in order to succeed in the game, how to score points in that particular game, how to serve to start the point, and then any in-play rules that are needed for our players allowed to send the ball to keep it in play. So we have 3 types of modification games that can be used. So one is a representational design, and this is where a mini version of the adult game that is quite popular now in tennis through the use of red, orange and green court setups with the primary rules of the game for serving, scoring and sending the ball over the net into the court. Mini games contain the same tactical problems of the adult game but are played with changes to suit the learner's size, age and ability. You then have exaggeration design games. So the idea here is that tactical problems may be too difficult to solve in the representational games. So with secondary rules can be used to exaggerate a tactical idea or tactical problem. For example, if you made the court long and narrow, in court leaves spaces at the front and back, and that encourages the use of a drop shot or lob. Or you could have 2 points for winning a point after a volley, which encourages players then to use a volley in the game, which then leads to the need to develop how to improve the volley. Then the other one is adaptation design. Here the game is modified to increase the challenge to a successful player based on the outcome of the previous game or point. So changes can be made in relation to the constraints of the game, such as the space, the scoring, and the rules that condition how you play. For example, in a mini tennis game starting a service box, a player's court can increase in size, adding another service box as a certain number of points are won, therefore making it more difficult for that player, and the other player has more space to hit into. So an example of a modified game is, here we have the castle game. So the purpose of this game is to develop consistency by relocating to cover the opponent's target area. The way the game is set up is a small target is in between the players, the yellow markers, and you have to hit that target 3 times to win the game. To start, you serve underarm. So here's your serving rule, above your head height. After the serve, you score a point when the ball lands inside the yellow marker, the little square. The ball can only bounce once between hits, alternative hitting between the players. Ball must hit the ball centered above head height. And this alternative hitting then creates this sort of tennis relationship with a very small court that they're covering. Now, in this game, it's a representational design because you serve into play, you hit the ball alternately, and you aim for a target, just like you do in the game of tennis. The exaggeration elements are the small space that you're aiming at focuses the play and then leads to more consistency. A single target to focus on where to go after the playing a shot becomes more obvious because you know where the person's going to hit it. Adaptation rule to this game can be added, so if a player hits the target, then 2 of the corners that are opposite each other get moved to be closer, making a smaller target, and they play again. Now, by doing this, it makes it easy for the person who has a larger target to actually catch up. Once you've got 3 hits, target very small at the end, you then win the game. So, from a Tennis Professional Association from Tennis Canada, the games that will follow are all team-based games that I showed initially, taken from their level 1 course. And the resource here is listed, and again at the end, and these videos all come from that manual. So one is Team Cones. Tasker here shows the game and explained, and the idea is in this game that you try to win 2 points first, or it could be 3 points if you want to change it, but 2 points is a good way to start. And if you get those 2 points, you win a cone for your team. And the idea is every time you win, you go and put a cone on the stack, and then you play a new opponent from another team. The ball can only bounce once. You could play it in red, orange, or green court. And by doing this, you play different opponents each time. Stop tennis, and a similar idea. You play against players from the other team. But in this game, you're trying to play up to 5 points, and then you call out stop. Play it in a red, orange, or green court, and you serve from behind the baseline into service box, just like in tennis. But this time, if you call stop, you win a point for your team, and then everybody else who is winning wins a point, or if it's a level in score, you win a point for your team. Then you rotate and play someone new from the other team. Up and down, similar idea of this idea of rotating against players, except this time you can have 2 different setups on A and B. One is you're rotating in a set of 4, but there's not, in each of the court games, there's a number 1 position, and every time you win, you move up a slot. And if a person wins, the person above them then moves down. And so basically you're trying to change your position to get to number 1 spot, but each time you're playing different opponents, and in one circumstances, like in A, you're rotating courts. Tag team tennis, again, it creates a situation where you're playing different opponents. This is played in the half court area. And as a pair, you're trying to win 4 or 5 points. You can play this again in the red, orange, or green court. Example here is in the green. But this time on one side, the player plays for 2 points and then rotates to their partner. On the other side, they play every point and keep rotating. This way they keep playing different opponents from the other teams. Then there's monarch of the court. In this setup, in particular one here, you're playing in a half court area. And the goal here is to try to, at the server, become the receiver. So the receiver stays there. The trick is that as servers play, they serve, they play at the point, they keep their score. If they win, they keep adding on. And when they get to 2 points, they say going for 3. If they get the 3rd point, they become the receiver, the monarch or the royal, sometimes it's called. However, if they lose when they go for 3, they go back to 0. Again, you can rotate against different opponents. In this specific setup, you can change courts, but you're always trying to become the monarch on the other side. Players from different teams obviously then try to become the player on the far side monarch to win the game at the end and score points for all those who are monarchs. Climb, serve, mounting. This is a game that really works on lots of serving in a team atmosphere. And the goal here is you decide where to serve from. So you get more points from further back, and you get less points from closer to net, but you're trying to score points for your team this case, first to 12 points, and every time you get the ball in, you win a point. However, you could make it towards the target to make it more difficult, and if someone is very successful in the first round, when they come back, you can reduce the court space that they can serve into to score points. All of these games have created a nice rotation between players, and so one app I found that's very useful for keeping tabs on this rotation is this one here, which I found on the App Store. There's a similar one in the Play Store. You can scan it here. It allows you to create any numbers of teams, and you can quickly just press plus or minus to give points, and then each round it keeps a tally for you. So this sort of is what they call the scoreboard game scoring tool, and it's been created by this group Chia, and you can find them online. And so by doing this type of game, you decide to set up how many persons, or in this case they become a team. You take a photograph of the team, and then you keep a score as they make progress throughout the different competitions you have. Summary points around this team-based idea. It really promotes its affiliation and competition. That implicit learning is then promoted through this effort that players put in. The game structure has aim and 3 rules, as I explained, categories: representational design based on adult game of tennis, then modification by representation, exaggerated adaptation to change that design in order to elicit different types of learning. In the case of exaggeration, you can then bring out tactics and skills to work on in the practice that follows the game. With adaptation rules, you can make the game closer by increasing space, changing the scoring system, or self-rally that allows more time for the players. And when you do this, the game design and rotating players, you promote this idea of non-conscious behavior mimicry, where players pick up from other opponents what they're doing to be successful. Thank you very much, and that's sort of the key summaries around game-based learning and modification of game.